What if the very words you're about to speak on Thursday could cost you everything God's been building in silence? What if your mouth right now is the only thing standing between you and the breakthrough you've been begging for? What if I told you that some of you reading this have already lost 3 miracles this year, not because God changed his mind, but because you couldn't keep your mouth shut long enough for heaven to finish the work? Listen to me. It's Thursday morning. Steam curls off your coffee cup. Winter light slices through the kitchen blinds. Your phone buzzes on the counter, someone asking how you're doing, what's new, if anything's changed. And right there, in that ordinary moment, you're about to make a decision that will either unlock or abort what's coming. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to make you feel good for 60 minutes. I'm here to keep you from missing what God has been preparing in the unseen while you've been crying in the scene. Some doors don't open with noise, some doors open with hush. Thursday is not just another day on the calendar. Thursday is a seed protection day. Right now, this very week, something is forming in the spiritual realm over your life. It's fragile. It's holy. It's not ready to be announced. And the enemy knows that if he can get you talking before it's time, he can collapse what heaven has been incubating. You see, what's growing inside your season is like a newborn in a hospital incubator. You don't crack open the door every 5 minutes just to prove the baby's still breathing. You leave it sealed. You let the warmth do its work. You protect the environment. Before we finish, I'm going to give you the 3 sentences you must say on Thursday, and the 1 sentence you must never say, no matter who asks. And I'm going to tell you about a specific moment, yes, a single moment when heaven listens harder than you think, and your silence becomes a sound that moves angels. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, not just good or bad, death and life." James 1:19 warns us to be quick to hear, slow to speak. And in Psalm 46:10, God himself commands, "Be still and know that I am God." Here's what broke my heart this week. Some of you didn't lose your breakthrough because you weren't blessed. You lost it because you announced what was still being built. You texted it. You posted it. You explained it to people who had no spiritual clearance to carry it. And the moment you opened your mouth, doubt walked in, jealousy took notes, and the enemy got intel he never should have had. Thursday is your reset. If you're still with me, type, "I will be still." And share this with one person who keeps over-explaining their miracle before it's manifested. Now, thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let that seed be part of what heaven is doing right now. Let's go deeper. Why is it that the moment you decide to keep quiet, everyone suddenly needs to know what's going on? Why does the enemy send a parade of voices the second you choose to protect what God is building? And why, tell me, why does your breakthrough always seem to slip through your fingers right after you explained it to the wrong person? Let me tell you something straight, because I love you too much to let you keep losing what heaven has already signed off on. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not fear. Silence is not you giving up or backing down. Silence is spiritual warfare at its sharpest, most surgical level. It's you saying, "I trust God more than I need your validation." And that right there is what terrifies the enemy. See, when you keep your mouth shut in obedience, you're not being passive, you're being precise, you're not retreating, you're reloading. Because silence isn't the absence of power. Silence is the presence of discipline. And discipline is what separates those who survive from those who thrive. Listen to me carefully. A silent day isn't about going mute forever. It's not about walking around like you took a vow of monasticism. A silent day is a biblically disciplined window of speech. It's you saying, "For this set period of time, I'm going to guard what God told me like it's the most valuable thing I own, because it is. Proverbs 13:3 says it plain, "Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life, but he who opens wide his lips comes to ruin." Not discomfort, not inconvenience. Ruin. That's the word. Your mouth can ruin what your faith built. Now let me break down 3 reasons why silence matters more than you think, and why Thursday is the day you need to lock it down. First, noise triggers anxiety, and anxiety triggers impulsive decisions. You know this. You've lived this. The more you talk about what's happening, the more voices you invite in, and those voices, well-meaning or not, start planting questions. Are you sure? What if it doesn't work out? You said that last time. And suddenly, what was clear in your spirit becomes clouded in your mind. You start second-guessing, you start panicking, you start moving out of faith and into fear, and fear makes you do things. Breakthrough was never designed to survive. Ecclesiastes 3:7 tells us there's a time to keep silence and a time to speak. God gave you that verse because He knows you. He knows that when you're anxious, you talk too much, and when you talk too much, you lose focus. Silence steadies you. It keeps your mind clear and your faith sharp. Second reason, some people don't want your healing because it exposes their dysfunction. I need you to hear that again. Not everyone is rooting for your breakthrough. Some folks have built their identity around being stuck, and when you start moving, it forces them to look at why they're still standing still. Your freedom makes them uncomfortable. Your joy convicts them. Your silence, your refusal to keep explaining yourself, threatens the narrative they've been telling themselves about why nothing ever works out. So what do? They probe. They pry. They push. What's going on with you? Why are you being so secretive? You think you're better than us now. And if you're not careful, you'll open your mouth to defend yourself. And in doing so, you'll hand them ammunition they'll use against you later. Matthew 6:6 says, "When you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." Secret, not silent because you're ashamed. Silent because what you're carrying is sacred. Third reason, and this one's tactical, spiritual opposition feeds on premature confession. I'm not talking mystical, I'm talking practical. When you announce what God is doing before it's fully formed, you give the enemy intel. You give gossip a storyline. You give sabotage a target. You give discouragement a door. Think about it. You've seen it happen. You told someone about the job offer, and suddenly the interview got cancelled. You mentioned the relationship, and suddenly it fell apart. You shared the financial blessing, and suddenly an emergency wiped it out. That's not coincidence. That's warfare, and your mouth was the entry point. Here's the image I want you to hold. You're baking a cake. It's in the oven, the timer's set, the heat's doing its work. But every 5 minutes, you crack open the oven door to check on it. Is it rising? Is it done yet? And what happens? The cake drops every single time because you didn't trust the process. You didn't protect the environment. That's what you've been doing with your breakthrough. You keep opening your mouth, checking in with people who have no business knowing, and the miracle collapses before it can solidify. Or try this. You don't walk into a bank and stand in the lobby yelling your account balance. You don't hand out your PIN to strangers. You protect what's valuable. Your future is valuable. Your calling is valuable. Your miracle is valuable. So why are you treating it like public information? I know you've been misunderstood. I know you've been mocked. I know you've been dismissed by people who should have celebrated you. But listen, God doesn't need their permission. He doesn't need their approval. He doesn't need their applause, and neither do you. Silence isn't weakness. Silence is aim. It's the moment you stop swinging wildly and start landing punches that count. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you the Bible pattern where God consistently moves after a hush. You're going to see it in Moses, in Elijah, in Jesus himself. But first, I need you to make a decision. Comment right now. Thursday, I guard the seed. And if you're carrying grief, fear, or doubt, write one word below. I'll pray over every single comment, because what you're about to step into requires a level of spiritual precision you've never practiced before. And it starts with your mouth. So the question is, are you ready to stop talking and start trusting? Now, listen closely, because what I'm about to show you is going to explain why some of you have been praying for years and still haven't seen the answer. It's not that God didn't hear you. It's not that you weren't faithful enough. It's that somewhere between the promise and the manifestation, you opened your mouth at the wrong time, to the wrong person, in the wrong spirit, and the blessing leaked out like water through cracked hands. I call them the 4 leaks. And if you've got even one of these running in your life right now, you're not under attack, you're overexposed. Leak number 1. Over-explaining to prove you're okay. You know this one, don't you? Someone asks how you're doing, and instead of saying, I'm trusting God, you launch into a 10-minute explanation of everything that's falling apart. You itemize your pain like you're filing a report. You justify your struggles because deep down you're terrified they'll think you're failing. Let me tell you something. You don't owe anyone a breakdown of your breakthrough in progress. Psalm 62:5 says, My soul, wait silently for God alone, for my expectation is from Him, not from your sister who never believed in you, not from your neighbor who's still stuck in her own mess, not from the church member who asks nosy questions disguised as concern. Your expectation is from Him. Stop auditioning for understanding. Stop giving people access to the sacred space where God is working. Some of you have talked yourself out of miracles because you spent more time explaining to people than resting in God. And every time you over-explain, you're leaking faith. You're letting doubt creep in through the back door because now you're not standing on what God said, you're standing on what they think about what God said. Here's the reality. The people who need you to prove you're okay are the same people who won't be there when God comes through. So why are you performing for an audience that doesn't even have a ticket to your testimony? Leak number 2. Seeking permission from people who never protected you. This one cuts deep because I've watched it destroy destinies. You're about to step into something new, a job, a relationship, a move, a ministry, and instead of seeking God's confirmation, you run to people who have never covered you, never fought for you, never prayed you through a single storm, and you ask them what they think. Galatians 1:10 asks, Do I now persuade men or God, or do I seek to please men? For if I still pleased men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ. You cannot serve 2 masters. You cannot live for God's approval and man's opinion at the same time. And yet some of you are sitting in limbo right now because someone who has no spiritual authority in your life told you to wait, told you it's too risky, told you you're not ready, and you believed them. Let me be blunt. If they didn't pray you into this season, they have no right to speak you out of it. If they didn't stand with you in the pit, they don't get a vote on your palace. Stop giving veto power to people who were never assigned to protect your destiny. Leak number 3. Venting to the wrong listener. Oh, this is the one that's gotten more breakthroughs killed than anything else. You're frustrated, you're tired, you need to talk. So you pick up the phone and call someone, anyone, just to get it off your chest. And what starts as venting turns into a 2-hour therapy session with someone who has 0 discernment, 0 faith, and 0 business speaking into your life. Proverbs 12:18 warns, There is one who speaks like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise promotes health. One call turns into 10 opinions. 10 opinions turn into confusion. Confusion turns into delay. And before you know it, your faith has collapsed under a pile of advice from people who don't even pray. You went looking for comfort and found contamination instead. Here's what you need to understand. Not every listener is a safe listener. Some people are emotional dumping grounds, not divine sounding boards. They'll agree with your complaints, validate your anger, and send you home with more bitterness than you came with. That's not fellowship. That's poison. You've got to guard who gets access to your voice when you're vulnerable, because the wrong listener will water the wrong seed. Leak number 4. Announcing before alignment. This is the deadliest leak of all. You feel something stirring. You sense God moving. And in your excitement or your need for validation, you announce it. You post it. You tell everybody. You claim it before it's confirmed. You celebrate before it's sealed. And then it falls apart. Luke 2:19 tells us that when Mary received the greatest announcement in human history, she kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. She didn't run through Nazareth shouting, "I'm pregnant with the Messiah." She didn't need the town's approval. She carried what God gave her in sacred silence until the time was right. Mary didn't explain to everybody. She carried. And that's what Thursday is calling you to do. Some things are too holy to announce. Some promises are too fragile to parade. Some breakthroughs are still being built in the unseen. And if you drag them into the light too soon, they'll wither under the scrutiny of doubters and the jealousy of onlookers. You're not hiding. You're protecting. There's a difference. At the end of this, I'm going to tell you the one kind of person you can talk to on Thursday without leaking your blessing. But first, you need to close the leaks you've already got running. If one of these hit you, type "close the leak" right now and subscribe, because next time we're going to talk about how to speak again after God moves, and trust me, you're going to need that teaching. Some of you aren't under attack, you're overexposed. And Thursday is your day to pull back, close your mouth, and let God finish what He started in the secret place. Now, let me show you what silence actually does in the Spirit. Let me take you somewhere. Close your eyes for a second. Picture this. A subway platform in Manhattan, rush hour. Everyone's yelling into their phones, music blasting from headphones, 100 conversations colliding in the air like a storm of noise. But then you hear it, that low rumble in the tunnel. The train is coming. And what happens? Everybody shuts up. The platform goes silent. People step back. They wait. Because when something powerful is about to arrive, the noise stops first. That's what Thursday is, chosen one. The rumble before the train, the hush before heaven moves. Now let me show you something that will wreck every excuse you've been holding on to. Open your Bible to Matthew chapter 4. Jesus, the Son of God, fully anointed, baptized by John, heaven itself ripping open and declaring, "This is my beloved Son." What does he do next? Does he run to the crowds? Does he announce his mission on every street corner? No. He goes into the wilderness, alone. 40 days, 40 nights. No audience, no applause. Just silence, fasting, and the voice of the enemy trying to break him before his time. Here's what wrecks me. Jesus didn't begin his public ministry until after the private silence. Your power doesn't grow on stages. Your power grows in private, in the wilderness, in the waiting room, in the early morning hours when it's just you and God and nobody's watching. That's where the anointing gets locked in. That's where your calling gets fortified. If Jesus himself needed the silence before the assignment, what makes you think you can skip it? But let me take you deeper. 1 Kings 19. Elijah, one of the mightiest prophets who ever walked this earth. He's just called fire down from heaven, slaughtered 450 false prophets, and now he's running for his life, exhausted, broken, hiding in a cave. And God says, "Go stand on the mountain, because I'm about to pass by." So Elijah stands there, and here comes a mighty wind so strong it's tearing the rocks apart. But the Bible says God was not in the wind. Then comes an earthquake, shaking the ground beneath his feet. But God was not in the earthquake. Then comes fire. But God was not in the fire. And after the fire, after all the noise, all the drama, all the chaos, there came a still, small voice. And that's where God was, in the whisper. Listen to me carefully. You've been waiting for God to show up in the earthquake. You've been looking for him in the fire, in the loud moments, in the big announcements. But God is in the whisper. He's in the Thursday morning when nothing seems to be happening. He's in the quiet when your phone isn't ringing and nobody's asking about your miracle. That silence isn't absence, that silence is presence. And if you can't hear him in the hush, you'll miss him when he moves. Now let me show you the one that should give every senior in this room hope that'll make your bones stand up. Genesis 37 through 50. Joseph, 17 years old when God gave him the dream, saw himself ruling, saw his brothers bowing, saw a future so big it didn't make sense. And what happened next? Betrayed by his own family, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, 13 years of silence. 13 years where it looked like God forgot his promise. 13 years where every logical person would have said, that dream is dead. But here's the truth that'll preach itself. The silence wasn't absence, the silence was construction. God was building character in private so Joseph could handle authority in public. And when the time came when Pharaoh needed a man of wisdom, Joseph went from the prison to the palace in one day. One day. After 13 years of hidden preparation, everything shifted in 24 hours. Your age doesn't cancel your calling, it concentrates it. Some of you have been hidden for decades. You've been in the prison of disappointment, the pit of rejection, the silence of delay. And you've been whispering to yourself, I'm too old now. I missed my moment. But Joseph was 30 years old when he was elevated. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. Abraham was 100 when the promise was born. Your wrinkles are not disqualification, they are preparation lines. Every year you've survived has been adding weight to your anointing, and Thursday is the day you stop explaining what God is still building. You think about it like this. You're in a hospital corridor. You've been waiting for test results. The hallway's been loud, nurses talking, machines beeping, phones ringing. But right before the doctor walks through that door with your results, everything gets still. The noise stops, the air gets thick. That's what Thursday is. The stillness right before the results arrive. Stay with me, because next I'm going to show you what Thursday silence does to your enemies, and why some people suddenly start acting strange when you stop talking. There's a reason certain folks get nervous when you go quiet. There's a reason the enemy panics when you stop defending yourself, stop explaining yourself, stop announcing every move. But that's coming. Right now, if you believe God can speak in a whisper, type, "Speak, Lord." And if you've been in a hidden season for years, maybe decades, and you're wondering if God forgot you, I want you to comment 2 words. Not forgotten. Because you're not. The silence wasn't absence. The silence was construction. And what's about to be revealed will make every year of waiting make sense. Now, listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you could be the difference between walking into your miracle or watching it slip through your fingers like sand. Thursday is coming. And the people closest to you are going to ask questions. They're going to probe. They're going to say things like, "So what's going on with you? You seem different. What are you praying about? What's God doing?" And right there, in that moment, you're going to feel pressure. Pressure to explain, pressure to prove, pressure to justify the shift you're feeling inside. But here's what heaven wants you to know. Not everyone who asks deserves an answer. I'm saying this because I care. I'm saying this because I've watched too many of you lose what God was building because you gave the wrong people access to sacred information. So let me be clear about the 3 types of people you must avoid on Thursday. Not because they're evil, not because you hate them, but because they are spiritually unauthorized to carry what God is incubating in you. First, there's the doubter. You know exactly who I'm talking about. This is the person who hears your faith and immediately responds with, "At your age, really? Don't you think it's too late for that?" They smile when they say it. They use soft words, but beneath the surface, they're planting seeds of limitation. They look at your gray hair and see decline. They look at your years and see endings. And when you share what God is stirring in your spirit, they kill it with kindness. Oh, that's sweet. But be realistic. Let me tell you something. Joel 2:25 says, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten, God is not bound by your age. He is not intimidated by your timeline. The same God who gave Sarah a son at 90, the same God who called Moses at 80, the same God who used John on the island of Patmos in his old age, is the same God breathing on your Thursday. So when the doubter speaks, you smile, you nod, and you say nothing, because they don't have the spiritual capacity to midwife what's being born in you. Then there's the friendly spy. Oh, this one's dangerous because they come disguised as concern. I'm just worried about you. I care. Tell me what's really going on. But listen, this person doesn't cover you in prayer. They comment on you in conversations. What you share in confidence becomes their content for coffee talk. They take your sacred moment and turn it into gossip dressed in empathy. Proverbs 26:20 says it plain. Where there is no wood, the fire goes out. Stop feeding the fire. Stop giving them material. The friendly spy doesn't need to know, and your breakthrough doesn't need their commentary. And then there's the controller. This is the person who believes they have a right to access every corner of your life. They want to manage your decisions. They want to approve your moves. They want you to check in, explain, and justify every step. And when you don't, they call it disrespect. They call it distance. They say you've changed. Proverbs 29:25 warns, the fear of man brings a snare. Chosen one, if you live for their approval, you will die waiting for it. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You owe God your obedience. So, who do you talk to on Thursday? Let me resolve this for you right now. There is one safe person, a trusted prayer partner who covers, not comments. Someone who hears your heart and lifts it to heaven without broadcasting it to the neighborhood. Or, if that person doesn't exist in your life right now, talk to your journal. Talk to God. Paper is safe. Prayer is safer. Write it down. Seal it. Let the Lord hold it. Because what's between you and God doesn't need a third-party opinion. Some of you right now are feeling the weight of this. You're thinking about the people you've been sharing too much with. You're realizing why certain doors closed after you spoke too soon. And I need you to do something with me right now. Don't wait. Put your hand over your chest, feel your heartbeat, and say this out loud. Lord, teach my mouth to serve my future. Say it again. Lord, teach my mouth to serve my future. And if this is hitting you in the chest like a hammer, share this message with someone who keeps getting pulled into family drama. Someone who keeps explaining their miracle to people who can't even spell obedience. Here's the truth that's going to set you free. You don't owe everyone an explanation. Let me say that slower. You don't owe everyone an explanation. Some people don't get access to your process. Some people aren't invited into your prayer closet. Some people weren't chosen to witness your transformation. And that's not rude. That's wisdom. That's boundaries. That's spiritual maturity. God has been building something in the secret place. He's been working on you when no one was watching. He's been reshaping, rewiring, and realigning you in silence. And now, just as it's about to break through, the enemy is sending voices to pull it out of you prematurely. Don't fall for it. Protect what's being formed. Guard it like the treasure it is. Because coming next, I'm going to give you the Thursday script. The exact phrases to use when people press you. The sentences that deflect without offending. The words that protect your peace without burning bridges. But first, you need to settle this in your spirit. Thursday is not a day for broadcasting. Thursday is a day for building. And what you protect in silence, God will reveal in power. Now listen carefully, because what I'm about to give you is not theory. This is tactical spiritual warfare. This is the difference between walking into your blessing and watching it evaporate before your eyes. You want to know why some people pray for years and see nothing, while others whisper one prayer and watch mountains move? It's not about how loud you are, it's about how protected you are, and protection starts with your mouth. Thursday is here, and you need a script, not because God needs you to be perfect, but because the enemy is listening for one slip, one premature announcement, one moment of pride disguised as testimony. He's waiting for you to crack open the incubator door and let the cold air of doubt, jealousy, and interference rush in. So here's what you say. Write this down. Memorize it. Let it become your reflex. Phrase number 1. I'm taking today quietly. I'll talk tomorrow. Short, kind, done. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your silence. You don't owe your neighbor a status update. You don't owe your cousin a progress report. When they ask what's going on, when they press you about that job, that relationship, that breakthrough you've been praying for, you smile and you say, I'm taking today quietly. I'll talk tomorrow. Notice what you didn't do. You didn't lie. You didn't shut them down rudely. You simply drew a boundary around what's sacred. Ecclesiastes 3-7 says there is a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Thursday is your time to keep silence. Tomorrow you can speak. But today you guard what God is building. Phrase number 2. I appreciate you. I'm praying on it before I speak. This one disarms people. This one stops the nosy questions in their tracks. Because who's going to argue with prayer? When your well-meaning friend corners you after church, when your sibling texts asking if anything's changed, when your coworker leans in and says, "So, did you hear back yet?" You don't explode. You don't get defensive. You breathe, you smile, and you say, I appreciate you. I'm praying on it before I speak. You're not being cold. You're being wise. Proverbs 29-20 warns, do you see a man who is hasty in his words? There is more hope for a fool than for him. Hasty words abort miracles. Prayerful silence protects them. Phrase number 3. I'm protecting my peace and my direction. This is the phrase that establishes authority. Not arrogance. Authority. You're not asking permission to be quiet. You're declaring that your peace and your direction are worth protecting. When people push, when they say, why are you being so secretive? Or, you used to tell me everything, you don't apologize. You stand firm and you say, I'm protecting my peace and my direction. Because here's the truth they won't tell you in Sunday school. Not everyone who asks about your life is rooting for your life. Some are monitoring, some are comparing. Some are waiting for you to fail so they can feel better about their own stagnation. Psalm 55-21 says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. Not everyone with a smile has your best interest at heart. Protect yourself. Now here's the phrase you must never say. Write this down in red ink, circle it, burn it into your memory. Never say, let me tell you what God is about to do. The moment those words leave your lips, you've done 3 things. You've announced the plan before it's executed. You've invited opinions from people who don't carry your anointing. And you've given the enemy a roadmap to your miracle. Mary didn't announce Jesus before he was born. She pondered things in her heart. Joseph didn't broadcast his dreams. He moved in obedience and silence. Abraham didn't throw a press conference before Isaac was conceived. He believed God and kept moving. If you feel the urge to announce, if you feel the pressure to prove that something's happening, replace that sentence with this. God is working. I'm staying faithful. That's it. That's all you need to say. You're not lying. You're not being vague. You're being mature. And maturity understands that your miracle doesn't need a microphone. It needs protection. Here's what's happening on a spiritual level. When you speak prematurely, you release the seed before the soil is ready. You expose the root before it's anchored. And the enemy sends crows to devour it before it ever breaks ground. Jesus warned about this in Matthew 13. The sower went out to sow, and some seed fell on the path, and the birds came and devoured it. Your words create the path. Your silence creates the soil. Thursday speech should be short, kind, and closed-ended. You're not shutting people out. You're shutting distraction down. You're not being rude. You're being obedient. And obedience always looks strange to people who don't understand the assignment. Type this in the comments right now. Short, kind, done. If these phrases helped you, if you feel the weight lifting off your chest because now you have language for what you've been feeling, hit that like button. Because when you do, you're telling the algorithm, send this to the tired, send this to the overlooked, send this to the ones who've been talking too much and losing too much. And now we're about to hit the biggest moment in this entire message. In the next section, we're going to talk about the spiritual law of seed time and silence. That's where most people lose the harvest. That's where the miracle dies before it's born. And if you've ever wondered why your prayers seem to evaporate right before they manifest, you're about to find out why. Stay with me, because what's coming next will change how you move for the rest of your life. Let me tell you something that's going to break open what you've been carrying in secret. Some of you have been buried in grief, buried in disappointment, buried under medical bills you can't explain to your children, buried in a marriage that went cold 20 years ago and you've just been going through the motions ever since, buried under the weight of dreams that died before they had a chance to breathe. And people, good people, church people, family people, they looked at you and called it the end. They said you were done. They said your season was over. They said it was time to accept that this is just how it's going to be. But let me tell you what the kingdom knows that the world doesn't. In God's economy, burial is often planting. You hear me? What looks like death to man is seed time to God. Mark chapter 4, verses 26 and 27. Jesus said the kingdom of God is like a man who scatters seed on the ground. Night and day, whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. Read that again. Though he does not know how. You don't have to know how. You don't have to explain how. You don't have to convince anybody how. The seed is working underground where nobody can see it, where nobody can touch it, where nobody can stop it. But here's where the enemy comes in. The devil can't stop the seed. He knows that. So instead, he tries to get you to dig it up with your mouth. He whispers, "Go ahead, tell them what God said. Prove you're not crazy. Defend your faith. Explain your process." And the moment you start talking, the moment you start defending, the moment you start explaining what's still forming, you break the seal. You let doubt in, you let fear in, you let opinions in, and suddenly, what was growing in holy darkness is now exposed to 1,000 voices that were never supposed to touch it. You lost friends. I know you did. You lost strength. You lost time. You lost sleep. You lost pieces of yourself you're not sure you'll ever get back. But God can restore time. God can restore joy. God can restore purpose. Joel 2:25 says, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." Not some of the years, plural, multiple, all of them. Let me paint you a picture. It's February in upstate New York. The ground is frozen, the trees are bare, the sky is gray, nothing looks alive. If you walked through a field right now, you'd swear everything was dead. But beneath that frozen earth, roots are working, bulbs are preparing, life is forming in the dark. That's you, right now. That's your Thursday, that's your season. Nothing looks alive on the surface, but heaven is working underground. And here's the line I need you to hold in your spirit. Maybe God didn't delay you. Maybe God was deepening you so the blessing wouldn't break you. Because some blessings require depth. Some callings require roots that go down so far that storms can't shake them. Some promises require a foundation that can only be built in silence, in waiting, in the discipline of holding your tongue when everything in you wants to scream. You've been asking God, "Why is this taking so long?" And God has been whispering, "Because what I'm giving you is bigger than what you asked for, and you're not ready yet. But you're getting there. Stay quiet. Stay still. Let me finish." Isaiah 55:11 says, "So shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose." It doesn't come back void. It doesn't need your help. It doesn't need your defense. It just needs your obedience. Thursday is your practice. Thursday is your discipline. Thursday is the day you declare, I will not dig up what God planted. You don't have to post about it. You don't have to text about it. You don't have to call your sister and explain what you felt in prayer this morning. You don't owe anyone an update on what God is doing behind the curtain of your life. Psalm 37:7 says, Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for him, not anxiously, not nervously, not with your phone in your hand refreshing the same conversation, patiently, in stillness, in holy, protected silence, because the miracle forming in you right now is fragile. It's real, but it's fragile. And fragile things need protection. They need warmth. They need time. They need an environment where doubt can't creep in and fear can't take root. Some of you are one conversation away from aborting what heaven has been building for months. One phone call, one coffee meetup, one can I just vent to you for a second, and the seed gets exposed too early and the enemy moves in. But not this Thursday. This Thursday, you're going to protect what God planted. This Thursday, your silence is going to be louder than any testimony you could give. This Thursday, heaven is going to see that you've finally learned the discipline of the deep. If you want to dedicate your Thursdays to holy silence, if you want to mark this day as sacred, if you're ready to stop digging up what God is growing, type right now, Thursday belongs to God. And if you need prayer, if you're carrying something heavy, grief, sickness, family pain, financial pressure, write, pray for me, and one word, just one. Because sometimes the deepest prayers don't need paragraphs, they just need surrender. Now, here's what you need to understand as we move forward. Silence is not passivity. Silence is warfare. And the weapon you're holding is sharper than you think. Now listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you isn't theory. This is what happens in real time when heaven starts to move over your life. And I need you to understand something. God doesn't always announce his arrival with trumpets and earthquakes. Sometimes the most powerful moves of God are so quiet, so ordinary, that you'll miss them if you're looking for a show. You've been praying for breakthrough. You've been crying out for change. You've been asking God to do something, anything, to shift what feels stuck. And here's what most people miss. He's already moving. Right now. But the evidence doesn't look like what you expected. Let me give you 3 unmistakable signs that God is moving in your life, even when nothing around you looks miraculous yet. Sign number 1, a strange calm in the middle of trouble. You wake up Thursday morning. The bills are still there. The diagnosis hasn't changed. The family situation is still messy. The bank account still looks the same. But something inside you is different. Fear can't find you anymore. I'm talking about that unexplainable peace that makes no logical sense. You're still dealing with the same facts, the same circumstances, the same people, but panic has lost its grip. Anxiety used to live in your chest like a weight pressing down. Now, it's gone, and you didn't do anything to earn it. You didn't meditate it away. You didn't talk yourself into it. It just showed up. That's not coincidence. That's Philippians 4:7 inches motion. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. When that peace arrives, it's not because your problems disappeared. It's because God himself stepped into the room. Here's why this matters. Peace is always the first sign that heaven is taking over. The enemy can fake a lot of things. He can fake excitement. He can fake feelings. But he cannot fake the peace of God. That peace is heaven's signature. It's God's way of saying, I'm here now. I've got this. You can breathe. Some of you felt it this week, and you didn't even know what it was. You thought maybe you were just tired of worrying. No, that was God steadying your spirit, because what's coming requires you to be calm, not frantic. Sign number 2. A door opens through an ordinary moment. You're not expecting anything. You're going through your regular Thursday routine, and then it happens. A phone call, a letter in the mail, a neighbor stops by with information, a doctor's office calls with an update, a small refund shows up, a name comes to mind. A memory surfaces that gives you clarity. It doesn't feel dramatic. It feels ordinary. And that's exactly why most people miss it. Isaiah 30:21 says, "Your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" Notice it doesn't say you'll see a burning bush or hear an audible voice from the clouds. It says you'll hear a word behind you, a whisper, a nudge, a direction that comes from a place you weren't even looking. God moves through the mundane. He hides his biggest miracles inside the smallest moments. And if you're waiting for fireworks, you'll walk right past the very door he opened for you. Let me tell you about Ruth. 83 years old. Widow. Living alone in Queens. She'd been praying for help with her mortgage for 2 years. Nothing. Then, one Thursday afternoon, her mailman, same mailman she'd had for 6 years, mentions that his cousin works at a non-profit that helps seniors with housing assistance. She never would have known. That conversation happened because God moved an ordinary man to say an ordinary sentence at the exact moment Ruth needed to hear it. 3 weeks later, her mortgage was restructured, not because of a lottery win, not because of a dramatic intervention, because God used a mailman. When God opens a door, it often looks like luck, it feels like timing. But John 10:27 says, "My sheep hear my voice." You're hearing him right now. You just didn't recognize the sound. Sign number 3. Your spirit resists what you used to tolerate. This one's going to hit some of you hard. Suddenly, you can't stomach the drama anymore. The gossip that used to entertain you now exhausts you. The toxic conversations that used to pull you in now repel you. The people who used to drain you can't get access anymore, and you don't even know why. Boundaries appear. Your appetite for chaos dies. And it's not because you became judgmental. It's because your spirit is being realigned with heaven's frequency, and heaven doesn't tolerate what hell celebrates. When God is preparing you for something new, he has to purge the old. And part of that purging is removing your tolerance for things that don't serve your destiny. You're not being harsh. You're being obedient. Here's what nobody tells you. When God moves, your discernment sharpens. You start to feel what's off before you can explain it. You start to recognize spirits before people reveal their intentions. That's not paranoia. That's preparation. Now, before we go further, I need to warn you about the Friday trap that cancels all this momentum. Most people fall for it because it feels responsible, even spiritual. I'll tell you what it is in just a moment. But right now, if you're feeling any of these 3 signs, I need you to do something. Comment below. I choose peace over panic. And if you're a senior watching this alone, type "not alone." We're building a prayer wall right here, right now, because you are not isolated. You are part of a remnant that God is moving over this very week. Here's the truth that will carry you into Friday. When God moves, he doesn't always shake the room. Sometimes he just steadies your hands. Sometimes he just quiets the storm inside you while the storm outside still rages. And that steadiness, that's proof he's already won. Now let's talk about what you absolutely cannot do on Friday. Now let me tell you what happens next. Thursday passes. You stayed quiet. You held your tongue. You protected the seed. And then Friday morning rolls around, and something shifts inside you. You feel it. Movement. A stirring. Maybe it's peace where panic used to live. Maybe it's clarity after months of fog. Maybe it's strength rising in your chest after years of feeling hollow. And that's when the trap opens wide. Friday becomes the day you want to tell somebody. Anybody. You want someone to finally look at you and say, "I believe you. I see it. You're not crazy." Because here's what most preachers won't tell you. You've been dismissed for so long that validation feels like oxygen. You've been overlooked, underestimated, and written off by people who should have stood with you. And now that God is moving, your soul is screaming for someone to witness it, to confirm it, to say, "Yes, you heard him right." But that urge to explain is not faith. It's a doorway, and the enemy is standing on the other side with a pen and a notebook. Picture this scene with me. You're finally getting traction. The doctor's report shifted. The bank account isn't bleeding anymore. The loneliness that's been crushing you for 3 years just lifted last night. And for the first time in forever, you woke up without dread. You call the one person who always talks you out of hope. The one who said your prayers were wishful thinking. The one who rolled their eyes when you said God spoke to you. You call them because somewhere deep down, you think if they believe it, then it must be real. And within 5 minutes, doubt is back in the room. Let me ask you something, and I need you to be honest with yourself. How many breakthroughs have you buried because you shared them with the wrong soul? How many times has God handed you a seed, and you immediately showed it to someone who had no business touching it? They didn't water it. They questioned it. They poked holes in it. And by the time you hung up the phone, what felt like fire in your spirit now feels like smoke. That's the Friday trap. The urge to explain becomes the doorway through which your miracle walks back out. Nehemiah understood this. When the people tried to distract him, tried to pull him into meetings and debates and explanations, he said something that every chosen one needs to tattoo on their soul. I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. He didn't justify. He didn't explain. He didn't defend his calling to people who weren't called to build with him. He just said, I will not come down, and neither will you. Before we go further, I'm going to teach you something I call the 3 doors test. This is how you know if a conversation is heaven sent or sabotage. After you talk to them, ask yourself 3 questions. Do you feel clear or confused? Do you feel strengthened or small? Do you feel led to pray or perform? If that conversation left you second-guessing what God already confirmed, you just walked through the wrong door. If it made you feel like you have to prove yourself, defend yourself, or shrink yourself, you didn't just share your testimony. You gave your anointing to someone with dirty hands. Proverbs 4:23 says, Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. That word keep in Hebrew means to guard, to protect, to watch over like a soldier. Your heart isn't a public park, it's a fortress. And not everyone gets access. Jesus himself said in Matthew 7:6, Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn and tear you in pieces. That's not cruel, that's wisdom. Some people don't have the spiritual capacity to honor what God is doing in you. And when you give them access, they don't just reject the word, they attack you for believing it. Here's the part that's going to sting, but you need to hear it. Some people don't hate you. They just hate what your healing reveals about their choices. Your breakthrough is a mirror. It shows them they could have trusted God too. They could have prayed harder. They could have stayed when it got hard. But they didn't. And now you're rising, and they're not. And the only way they can cope with that is to convince you that you're not really rising at all. So they'll say, Are you sure? They'll say, I just don't want you to get your hopes up. They'll say, Remember what happened last time? And every word is a slow leak in your faith tank. That's why Friday is dangerous, because by Friday you feel something, and the enemy knows that if he can get you talking to the wrong people, he can turn your testimony into an argument. He can shift you from gratitude into defense mode. And once you're defending what God already confirmed, you've lost your footing. If you're still tracking with me, I need you to type this right now. I will not come down. Say it again. I will not come down. If you've been guilted for protecting your peace, if someone made you feel selfish for setting boundaries, if you've been shamed for not explaining yourself to people who never supported you in the first place, type these 2 words, no guilt. Because here's what I know. You didn't survive everything you survived just to hand your future to someone who couldn't even celebrate your past. You didn't pray through the nights, cry through the mornings, and stand when your knees buckled just so you could let some lukewarm opinion unravel what heaven stitched together in silence. Thursday was your day of stillness. Friday is your day of discernment. And what you do with your mouth in the next 24 hours will determine whether Saturday brings manifestation or mourning. So the question isn't whether God is moving. The question is, are you going to guard what He's doing, or are you going to explain it away? Chosen one, I need you to hear something that's going to change the way you've been waiting. You've been standing at the edge of your Red Sea for months, maybe years, staring at the water, praying for the water, begging God to move the water before you take a single step, and nothing has happened. The sea hasn't budged, the miracle hasn't shown up, and somewhere, deep inside, you started to believe that maybe God forgot about you. But what if I told you that the reason the water hasn't moved is because you haven't? What if the miracle you've been praying for is not waiting on God's timing, it's waiting on your obedience? Listen to me carefully. Most miracles don't happen before movement. They happen after it. In Joshua chapter 3, verse 13, God told the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant to step into the Jordan River, not after it dried up, not after the waters rolled back, not after they could see the path. He said, "The moment your feet touch the water, the river will stop flowing." Did you catch that? The moment, not before, after. God didn't part the Jordan so they could walk across in comfort. He parted it because they were willing to get their feet wet first. They had to step into the impossible before the impossible became possible. And right now, God is asking you to do the same thing. You've lost people. You've buried loved ones whose chairs at the dinner table still feel empty. You've lost time, decades you thought would be different, years you can't get back. You've lost strength. Your body doesn't move like it used to. Your energy isn't what it was. Some mornings, just getting out of bed feels like climbing a mountain. And because of all that loss, you've become afraid to hope. You've told yourself that hope is for younger people, that faith is for those who still have time left, that miracles are for people whose lives aren't as complicated, as broken, as worn down as yours. But let me tell you something that will shake the dust off your soul. You haven't lost God's attention. You haven't lost His favor. You haven't lost your assignment. And you absolutely have not lost your miracle. What you've lost is your willingness to step. Hope is not childish. Hope is obedient. And obedience doesn't wait for proof. It moves before the evidence arrives. Abraham didn't know where he was going when God told him to leave everything behind. Hebrews 11:8 says he went out, not knowing where he was going. He didn't have a map. He didn't have a plan. He didn't even have confirmation that this was going to work out. But he went anyway. And that obedience became the foundation of nations. David didn't wait until Goliath fell asleep. He ran toward him. Moses didn't wait until Pharaoh changed his mind. He lifted his staff over the sea. Esther didn't wait until the king promised safety. She walked into the throne room and said, "If I perish, I perish. Step, then water. Obey, then open. Move, then miracle." That's the pattern of heaven. That's how God has always worked. He doesn't remove the obstacle before you walk toward it. He removes it because you walked toward it. And this Thursday, is your stepping day. God is not asking you to be loud. He's asking you to be brave. He's not asking you to have all the answers. He's asking you to take the first step even when you're shaking, even when your knees are weak, even when every logical part of your brain is screaming that this makes no sense. Psalm 56:3 says, "When I am afraid, I will trust in you." It doesn't say if I'm afraid, it says when, because God knows that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is obedience in the presence of fear. Some of you are terrified right now. You've got health news sitting on your kitchen table that you haven't opened yet. You've got bills you don't know how you're going to pay. You've got family members who've walked away, and you don't know if they're ever coming back. You've got loneliness that wraps around you like a heavy coat every single night. And you've been asking God to move first, to prove Himself first, to show you the miracle before you make the move. But heaven is saying, step first. Trust me in the stepping. I'll part the waters while your feet are still wet. Your miracle is not waiting on your perfection, it's waiting on your position. It's not waiting for you to have your life together. It's waiting for you to position yourself in obedience, even when your life is falling apart. It's waiting for you to say yes when every circumstance is screaming no. If you're still with me, if this is landing on your spirit like fire, I need you to type 3 words right now. I will step. And if you need courage, if you're facing something that feels too big, too heavy, too impossible, write 1 word in the comments, just 1. Health, finances, family, whatever it is, write it. And we're going to stand with you in prayer. Because